Alexander Hart was a wealthy and influential billionaire. But that night, he sat alone in his dark office like a frightened parent, not a powerful tycoon. His hands trembled as he clicked on a hidden camera he had vowed never to view again. Because the last time he watched, he saw his son shatter. On the screen, his 12-year-old son, Ethan, was in his wheelchair sobbing so intensely his entire body shook. His face was drenched with tears. His voice was barely coherent, just raw agony. The kind of agony that makes a child sound like he has surrendered. And right in front of him was the new housekeeper, Maria. Alexander's breath caught in his throat. Maria wasn't summoning the nurse. She wasn't dashing for assistance. She was kneeling near Ethan's legs, both hands on his calves as if examining something, as if she understood something profound. Alexander leaned closer to the screen, his jaw clenched. His mind flashed back to the day the doctor stared him in the eyes and declared, "Your son will never feel or move anything from the waist down again." Alexander had accepted it. He had structured his entire existence around it. He had invested millions in accommodations for it. Now, in the stillness of his own estate, his eyes captured something inexplicable. Ethan's leg responded. Not a dramatic shift, not a wonder, just a subtle twitch beneath the skin. Like a muscle responding to a summons. Alexander froze. His mouth parted, but no words emerged. Ethan was still weeping, but his sobs shifted. As if he sensed it too. As if he detected something stirring within him that everyone claimed was lifeless. Maria's voice was soft and composed, but it struck Alexander like a blow. "Don't be afraid," she told Ethan. "You are not the issue." She pressed her palm gently once more, then paused. Another twitch. Alexander's eyes stung. His chest ached. He yearned to charge downstairs, but his body refused to budge. He could only gaze. Then, Maria murmured something that made Alexander's stomach plummet. "They informed your father it was irreversible," she said. "But I don't trust them." At that precise instant, Alexander's office phone rang. Unknown caller. He glared at it as if it were a menace. The ringing persisted, piercing the quiet. On the screen, Maria raised her head as if she heard the echo through the walls. Her face turned toward the room's corner, directly toward the concealed camera, directly toward Alexander, and she whispered so faintly it almost seemed unreal. "Mr. Hart, if you're observing, you need to come now before they conceal it once more." Alexander's eyes brimmed with tears. Because in that moment, he grasped something horrifying. The worst ordeal that befell Ethan might not have occurred on the stairs. It might have happened afterward. And if Maria was correct, the individuals he entrusted with his son's well-being had been concealing the truth for 3 years. And now someone was contacting him from an unknown number. At midnight, the same evening his son's leg stirred. Dear viewers, please remain with me until the conclusion of this tale. A billionaire father believed his surveillance was safeguarding his paralyzed son. But one night, he witnessed something that filled him with nauseating dread. A serene housekeeper did not shriek. She did not flee. She merely whispered a revelation. And that revelation could rescue the boy or dismantle those who deceived. Stay with me because what unfolds next will shatter hearts and unveil everything. Alexander Hart forged his reputation on mastery. His empire expanded because he orchestrated every step and scrutinized every hazard. At home, that same discipline governed his mansion in Eastwood, California. Doors secured precisely. Staff adhered to timetables. Nothing was left to fortune. Then his son Ethan reminded him that existence defies regulations. Ethan was 9 when it transpired. He adored graphic novels and miniature race cars. He dashed across the lawn every dusk, sometimes until Alexander had to hoist him indoors. Alexander was occupied, but he convinced himself he was providing Ethan a secure existence. He employed aides so Ethan would never be solitary. He established explicit guidelines. He thought that sufficed. After Alexander's wife departed, the residence felt chillier. Ethan began trailing Alexander, posing simple queries just to maintain proximity. Alexander frequently responded while glancing at his device. He assured himself he would allocate time later. One spring afternoon, Alexander had a crucial virtual conference. He instructed Ethan, "Remain downstairs. I'll descend shortly." The caregiver on shift was Sarah Jenkins. Alexander reiterated his primary directive. Ethan was never to approach the stairs without an adult alongside. Sarah grinned and affirmed, "I comprehend." That afternoon, Sarah lounged on the sofa with her phone. Ethan desired his blue toy truck that was abandoned upstairs. He requested Sarah. She dismissed him without lifting her gaze. Later, she uttered. Ethan lingered, then inquired again. Sarah exhaled. "I said later." Ethan did not weep. He fell silent. He lowered himself and commenced crawling, striving to evade notice. He traversed the carpet, then the hardwood where his knees began to smart. He persisted. The stairway barrier was ajar. Sarah had left it thus while transporting laundry. Ethan attained the initial step and grasped the banister. He attempted to haul himself upward just sufficiently to reach the platform. His foot skidded on the rim. The tumble was swift. His form cascaded down the treads. The noise reverberated through the lofty ceiling. Then ensued a wail that did not resemble a child's. It echoed pure terror. Sarah hurried in, device still clutched. She halted at the vision of Ethan contorted at the base. His complexion was ashen. Then he cried, "Dad, I can't sense my legs." Alexander heard it through the office portal. He sprinted down the corridor, mind vacant. When he beheld Ethan, he sank to his knees. "Dial emergency," Alexander bellowed. Sarah's hands quivered as she phoned. She repeated, "I'm sorry." But Alexander did not reply. He clasped Ethan's hand and pleaded, "Stay with me. Please stay with me." At Riverside Medical Center, attendants wheeled Ethan away. Alexander endorsed documents he scarcely perused. He demanded the finest treatment and the most advanced imaging. He kept fixating on the entrances, anticipating someone to assure him his son would recover. That initial evening, a nurse mentioned complications during conveyance. "The inflammation is more severe than anticipated." Alexander posed inquiries, but she merely stated the physician would clarify. In the morning, a senior physician convened with Alexander and spoke as if the matter was concluded. He stated Ethan suffered a spinal trauma from the plunge. He asserted the immobility would be enduring. Alexander queried, "Are you certain? Did you perform every examination?" The physician's gaze averted momentarily. "We executed what was necessary," he replied. "This is the result." Alexander accepted him because he lacked the fortitude to contest in that instant. He desired to believe the gravest was solely the descent, not something subsequent. Ethan returned home in a wheelchair. The lad who once sprinted now observed the world from a seat. He attempted rehabilitation, then ceased. He grinned for Alexander, then sobbed in solitude. Alexander dismissed Sarah and never uttered her name again. Alexander recruited therapists, nurses, and additional personnel. Some were compassionate, some were brusque when they believed no one observed. Alexander detected a therapist omitting routines. He witnessed a nurse yanking Ethan's chair too forcefully. He overheard an elevated tone behind a door. Each minor incident instilled fear that Ethan would be injured anew. Not by stairs this time, but by human negligence. That apprehension evolved into surveillance. Alexander concealed cameras in fixtures, nooks, and ledges. He informed no one. He convinced himself it was safeguarding. But late at night when slumber evaded him, he pondered if he was also attempting to unearth the truth about that medical facility. The truth he lacked the bravery to confront. 3 years elapsed. Ethan turned 12. His physique matured, but his optimism dwindled. The estate resembled a subdued infirmary. Personnel cycled. Individuals departed when it grew arduous. Alexander labored extended hours to evade the anguish at home. Then one housekeeper resigned abruptly. Alexander engaged a replacement swiftly. Her name was Maria Thompson, a woman with a serene countenance and firm hands. In the interview, she did not commend the residence. She posed one modest query. "Does Ethan enjoy music?" Alexander nearly responded negatively. Then he recollected Ethan twirling in the kitchen years prior. "He used to," Alexander replied. Maria nodded as if that signified something. On her inaugural day, she proceeded to Ethan's chamber and presented herself gently. Ethan did not glance up initially. Maria did not compel him. She simply stated, "Good morning, Ethan. I'll be nearby. You can inform me what you require." That evening, Alexander sat in his office, scrutinizing the camera inventory. He had not inspected the streams in weeks. His finger lingered over Ethan's room. He convinced himself he was merely ensuring the new housekeeper complied with protocols. But deep within, Alexander sensed something else. A dread that the past was unresolved and an aspiration he hesitated to articulate. Outside, the residence was hushed, but Alexander could not dismiss the sensation that someone was obscuring what transpired to Ethan. Alexander remained in his office until the wall clock indicated nearly midnight. The estate was silent, but his thoughts were tumultuous. His mind repeatedly returned to one image. Ethan at the stairs, base, gazing up at him and uttering, "Dad, I can't sense my legs." He assured himself he was examining the cameras for one purpose, to confirm the new housekeeper adhered to regulations, but he knew that was not the complete truth. He also desired to ascertain if his home remained secure and if his son still possessed a motive to persevere. He selected the camera directory. Tiny frames populated the display. Corridors, kitchen, parlor, stairs. His finger hesitated over Ethan's room. He inhaled deeply and selected it. Ethan was abed, alert. The light was dimmed. Maria sat on the floor beside the bed, not too near, not too distant. She was folding a fresh towel, then halted and directed her gaze toward Ethan as if attuned to an unspoken notion. "You don't have to speak," Maria said. "I can just sit here." Ethan turned his face to the wall. "People sit, then they depart," he mumbled. Maria did not dispute. "I get compensated to tidy," she said. "But I don't get compensated to feign. If you desire silence, I'll provide silence." Quietude endured for a prolonged moment. Then Ethan inquired, "Why are you here?" Maria responded plainly. Because this position exists, and because I dislike children being handled like objects. Ethan swallowed. They don't intend it, he said. They just don't know what to do. Maria nodded. Then we'll do something straightforward, she said. One minor thing each day. One thing you select. Ethan finally regarded her. Like what? Maria retrieved a compact speaker from her satchel. Music, she said. If you detest it, I deactivate it. Ethan stared at it. My dad won't approve noise. Then we maintain it subdued, Maria countered. Not for the house, for you. She initiated a gentle melody, leisurely and tranquil. Ethan did not grin, but his expression softened. Alexander felt his throat constrict while observing. He had not queried Ethan about his preferences in ages. Maria did not linger long. She bid good night and departed. Ethan extended to extinguish the lamp himself, something he typically solicited aid for. He accomplished it, then reclined. Alexander gazed at the darkened feed. A realization struck him, acute and painful. Ethan had been awaiting care, but he had also been awaiting respect. The subsequent evening, Alexander returned home before twilight. He did not proclaim his arrival. He entered and positioned himself near the hallway corner, listening. From the parlor, he detected a faint tapping. Wood against wood. He advanced closer. Maria sat on the rug with Ethan's wheelchair oriented toward her. She held 2 wooden spoons and wrapped them together. Ethan possessed 2 spoons as well. His cadence was erratic, but he was endeavoring. Maria did not rectify him harshly. She synchronized with him, then decelerated, then permitted him to synchronize. When Ethan sustained a rhythm for 2 measures, she smiled. That's it, she said. You achieved it. Ethan's lips curved momentarily. Then he glanced down, embarrassed by his own delight. Alexander's eyes stung. He remained concealed. He did not wish to disrupt the instant by centering it on himself. Later, after Maria escorted Ethan back to his chamber, Alexander addressed her in the kitchen. His tone was restrained but weary. What are you doing with him? He inquired. Conversing, Maria said. Listening. Small movement exercises. Nothing hazardous. Alexander desired to ask why she cared. Instead, he stated, do not take him near the stairs. I won't, Maria replied. I already noticed the marks on the wall where the old barrier was. Someone removed it. I will not rely on that. Alexander's jaw tensed. It will be reinstated tonight, he said. Maria nodded once. Good. Over the ensuing days, Ethan transformed in subtle ways. He lingered longer at the table. He responded to Maria with complete words rather than a shrug. He even inquired once, what melody is that? Alexander overheard it from the hall and felt his chest ache. Then the initial indication emerged. Minor but distinct. Ethan was in his chair by the window, gazing outward as customary. Maria stood behind him and adjusted a coverlet. As she stooped, her hand grazed Ethan's thigh inadvertently. Ethan jolted. Maria froze. Did you sense that? She asked. Ethan's voice emerged faint. Maybe, he said. Maria did not exult. She did not exclaim. She merely said, okay, we'll be cautious. Alexander viewed that moment on camera later, his stomach churning. The medical facility had asserted no sensation. Yet Ethan jolted like someone who experienced contact. Alexander extracted Ethan's old medical dossier from the secured drawer in his office. He had not opened it in a long time. He perused page after page. The terms were expansive and conclusive. Severe trauma, permanent consequence, no anticipated recovery. He searched for timelines, scans, names. Some pages were absent. One line stated, "Imaging postponed due to workflow," and it abruptly ceased. His hands commenced trembling. He contacted his private aide. "I want every record from Riverside," he said. "Complete imaging logs, nursing annotations, transfer notes, all of it." The aide hesitated. "Hospitals resist releasing. Obtain it," Alexander insisted. He recalled the nurse who avoided his gaze the first night, the hasty documentation, the manner a physician terminated queries with, "It is what it is." Alexander had ingested it because he was terrified. Now he was more terrified, because hope had returned, and hope could be pilfered right before him. That night, Alexander sat at his desk until after midnight. When his phone vibrated, he thought it might be the aide. Unknown number. The message was concise. "Cease probing or your boy will suffer again." Alexander stared at the message until his phone dimmed. "Cease probing or your boy will suffer again." The words did not seem like a jest. They seemed like someone who knew his vulnerability. He captured a screenshot and noted the number in a journal. Then he deactivated his phone and sat motionless. For 3 years, he had borne guilt about the stairs. Now another fear arose, that the plunge was merely the initial wrongdoing against Ethan. He accessed the camera feeds and inspected corridors and entrances. Nothing stirred. The house appeared serene, and that intensified the threat because peril can lurk within serenity. He selected Ethan's room. Ethan slumbered with one hand on his coverlet. Earlier, Maria had tucked him in and left a small nightlight illuminated. Alexander felt tears ascend, then suppressed them. Ethan required composure. At dawn, he contacted his head of security, David Kane. "Come immediately," Alexander said. No uniform. David arrived promptly, attired like an ordinary neighbor. Alexander displayed the screenshot. David read it, then looked up. "You requested hospital records yesterday," David said. The threat arrived hours later. Someone was notified. Alexander's tone was subdued. "Can they access my son?" "Not if we fortify," David replied. "We restrict the access list, log every staff ingress, and position a plainclothes guard near Ethan's area. And we monitor where your request propagates." Alexander nodded. "I want every name linked to that night at Riverside. The physician who sealed the case, the conveyance team, and Sarah Jenkins." David noted it. "What about the new housekeeper?" "Maria remains," Alexander said. "She is aiding Ethan." David's eyes narrowed. "Then we safeguard her too." Maria arrived at 7, composed as ever, carrying a modest lunch bag. She proceeded directly to the kitchen and commenced breakfast. Alexander observed from the doorway. In a residence erected on wealth, Maria was the sole one who behaved as if hope could still reside there. Ethan wheeled in minutes later, hair disheveled, face fatigued. When he saw Alexander, he halted. "You're home," Ethan said. "I'm taking time off," Alexander replied. "I want to be here." Ethan's eyes lowered. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," Alexander said swiftly. He crouched beside the chair. "I just miss you." Ethan did not respond, but his shoulders relaxed. When Ethan proceeded to his morning session with the visiting therapist, Alexander lingered in the kitchen with Maria. He kept his voice low. "Someone threatened me last night," he said. Because I solicited the hospital for records. Maria's expression shifted. Not astonishment, but quiet fury. So you are investigating, she said. I must, Alexander replied. I saw something on camera. Ethan reacted. Maria inhaled. I touched his legs because he flinched once when I adjusted his sock, she said. Minor but genuine. I tested gently, and I observed a response. Alexander swallowed. They told me there was nothing. Maria regarded him steadily. Sometimes the plunge injures a child, she said. And then the hospital exacerbates it. A delayed examination, a rough conveyance, a hasty decision. If they confess, they forfeit everything. So they attribute it to the plunge and seal the narrative. Alexander leaned on the counter. Now someone wants me to halt. Then we proceed wisely, Maria said. We do not alarm Ethan. We maintain his day's routine. And you obtain a second opinion. Someone unaffiliated with Riverside. I already selected one, Alexander said. In San Diego, Drive. Michael Grant. Maria nodded. Do not discuss this near staff you don't trust. Truth spreads quickly. Ethan returned later, face weary. He wheeled into the parlor and stared at the stretching bands the therapist abandoned. What's the purpose? He muttered. I try and nothing alters. Maria sat on the rug before him. 5 minutes, she said. Only 5. Ethan frowned. Why do you care? Because I see you, Maria said. Not the chair. Ethan's eyes brimmed, and he wiped them hastily. People say they care, then they depart. I'm here today, Maria replied. Today is sufficient. Alexander stood by the doorway, striving not to encroach. But when Ethan's hand trembled as he grasped the band, Alexander approached and knelt. No pressure, Alexander said. Just 5 minutes. Ethan stared at him. You get hopeful, he whispered. Then you get hurt again. Alexander's throat constricted. I got frightened, he said. I tried to control everything because I didn't know how to endure your pain. Ethan looked away. I'm tired, Dad. I know, Alexander said. So we proceed slowly. Ethan pulled once, then stopped, breathing laboriously. Alexander held the other end. Steady. Ethan pulled again. 2 minor pulls. Then Maria said, Stop. Good. Before lunch, a courier delivered an envelope at the gate. It bore the hospital emblem. Alexander opened it in his office and felt ill. The pages were duplicates, not originals. Entire sections were obscured, and the imaging log terminated mid-sentence. Someone had determined what he was permitted to view. When he glanced outside, a dark sedan idled across the street with its engine running. It departed as soon as he stirred. That afternoon, David returned with a dossier. Your records request activated an internal alert, David said. Someone at Riverside contacted a private number immediately after. Alexander's hands balled into fists. Can you trace it? Working on it, David replied. But I discovered something else. Sarah Jenkins received a payout from Riverside 3 weeks after the plunge. Discrete funds. Not a wage, a settlement. Alexander felt nauseous. They compensated her. David nodded. And she relocated out of state 2 months later. Alexander looked through the doorway. Ethan was chuckling softly at a whimsical tale Maria narrated. Minor but authentic. Alexander's eyes stung. The past was unresolved. It lingered right behind his son's smile, awaiting Alexander to select fear or the truth. Alexander did not slumber. He sat in his office with the dossier open, perusing until the words blurred. A payout to Sarah Jenkins. Hospital records with blackouts. A threat from an unknown number. And his son Ethan laughing in the adjacent room as he had not in years. At dawn, Alexander stood by Ethan's door and listened. Ethan was awake, silent, the way he became when anxiety weighed on him. Alexander knocked gently and entered. "You up?" Alexander asked. Ethan shrugged. "I couldn't sleep." Alexander sat across from him. "Bad dreams." Ethan looked down. "Not dreams. Real stuff." Alexander waited. Ethan's voice emerged small. "I keep seeing the stairs. I keep hearing myself scream." Alexander's chest tightened. "I hear that scream too," he said. "Every day." Ethan blinked rapidly. "Then why do you act like nothing happened?" "Because if I release it, I feel like I'll disintegrate," Alexander said. "But I'm trying to stop concealing." Ethan studied him, uncertain. "We have an appointment today," Alexander added. "A new doctor, just a check." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "More tests." "Yes," Alexander said. "Maria will accompany. I'll stay with you." Ethan whispered, "Okay." Maria arrived with a small bag and warm porridge. She placed it beside Ethan and said, "Eat a little. Your body needs energy." Ethan took a few bites. David Kane met them at the front door in civilian attire. "2 vehicles," he said. "No insignias. We assume surveillance." They departed for San Diego. Maria rode with Ethan, speaking softly to maintain his calm. Alexander watched them in the mirror and felt acute remorse. Maria could connect with Ethan with few words. Alexander still faltered. Halfway there, Alexander's phone buzzed. Unknown number again. "Turn back." Alexander showed David at the next signal. David's face remained stern. "We continue," he said. Ethan noticed Alexander's tight grip on the wheel. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Something is attempting to intimidate me," Alexander said. "But you are secure." Ethan's voice trembled. "Are we in danger?" Maria leaned forward. "Look at me," she said. "Breathe slowly. In, out." Ethan followed, his shoulders easing slightly. At the clinic, Drive, Michael Grant greeted them personally. He crouched to Ethan's level. "Hi, Ethan. You can call me Michael if you want." Ethan blinked. "Doctors don't do that." "Some do," Michael said. "I'm here to learn about you, not just your file." Alexander handed over the dossier. "Riverside sent copies," he said. "Some parts are blocked." Michael's smile faded. "That's not standard," he said. "We'll conduct our own work." In the exam room, Michael explained each step in simple terms. He tested sensation with light pressure, then warm and cold. Ethan flinched once. Michael paused. "Did you feel that?" Ethan hesitated. "Yes, a little." Alexander felt his throat close. Maria's hand rested on Ethan's shoulder. Michael looked at Alexander. "If he can feel some touch, we need to question the narrative of complete loss." He added that it does not mean he will walk tomorrow, but it means we should not accept a closed door. They performed imaging that afternoon. Alexander watched the screen in silence, reading the doctor's face more than the images. After the scan, Michael sat them down. "First," he said, "the fall was serious. But second, I see signs that some damage may have worsened after the initial hours. I need the original timeline. When was the first full scan done? Who handled the transfer? Who signed off on stabilization?" Alexander's hands trembled. "Riverside won't provide that." "Then we request it through legal channels," Michael said. "And we document what Ethan can do now, from today forward. Ethan spoke in a broken whisper. So they lied. Michael looked at him gently. I don't know yet, he said. But I do know you are not imagining what you feel. Ethan's eyes filled. Everyone treated me like I was finished. Maria's voice was soft. You are not finished. Alexander admitted. Someone threatened me. They told me to stop. Michael's gaze sharpened. Then you need protection and counsel, he said. Hospitals have power. But truth has power too, if you gather it correctly. When they exited, Alexander's vehicle would not start. The dashboard lights flickered, then extinguished. David opened the hood, inspected, then looked back. Someone severed the line, he said. Clean cut. Alexander's blood chilled. This was no longer a warning. It was an act. David addressed the front desk calmly and firmly. Call local police, he said. And check exterior cameras. Ethan clutched Maria's hand. Dad, he whispered. Are they coming for us? Alexander knelt beside him. They are trying to make me flee, he said. I won't. Maria looked at Alexander. We return home, but we return smarter. Alexander nodded. And we begin with the person who was there that day. David's phone buzzed. He read it, then handed it to Alexander. A new message from a different number. We know where she shops. Alexander closed the phone and forced his voice steady. David, keep Ethan inside, he said. He turned to Maria. Did you tell anyone about San Diego? Maria shook her head. No, I informed nobody, not even the cook. A patrol car arrived minutes later. David conversed with the officer while Alexander stood near Ethan's chair. Ethan's eyes darted from face to face, trying to comprehend without inquiring. Alexander despised that expression, the look of a child discovering peril. On the return in the reserve vehicle, Ethan finally spoke. Is this my fault? He asked. Alexander's stomach sank. No, he said. You are not a problem to manage. You are my son. Ethan whispered. Then why do bad things keep happening? Alexander gazed at the road. Because some people protect themselves, he said. But we will protect you, and we will not deceive you anymore. Alexander brought Ethan home before dusk. The reserve car passed through the gate, and the guards secured it swiftly. David Kane surveyed the driveway first, scanning the grounds and windows. Alexander propelled Ethan's wheelchair inside and locked the front door himself, like a man who no longer trusted locks. Maria remained close to Ethan, calm and steadfast. Alexander still noticed her fingers tremble once when she thought no one saw. In the kitchen, David spoke softly. That message about shopping targeted her, he said. Whoever is responsible wants you to cease, and they'll employ fear. Alexander looked at Maria. Do you have family nearby? He asked. My sister resides in Los Angeles, Maria said. But I don't want to bring danger to her. We won't, Alexander replied. He turned to David. 2 guards near Maria, 1 near Ethan's wing. Nobody enters without your approval. David nodded. And we trace the numbers. That night, Alexander sat with Ethan in the parlor. The television was off. Ethan stared at the blanket in his lap. Dad, Ethan said, what did the doctor see? Alexander chose simple words. He saw that you still have some feeling, he said. Not full answers yet, but enough to pose new questions. Ethan's mouth trembled. So I wasn't fabricating it. No, Alexander said. People just stopped listening. Ethan whispered. Why would they lie? Alexander's eyes filled. Because they were scared, he said. They might have erred. Some people bury truth to preserve their positions. Ethan's face tightened. Like the nanny. Alexander nodded. Yes, he said, and I should have been there. Ethan looked away. I don't want you to vanish again. I won't, Alexander said. Even if I'm scared. Later, Maria assisted Ethan with his evening routine. She asked Alexander to remain in the room. Alexander almost declined out of habit, then compelled himself to stay. Maria placed her hands on Ethan's calves. Gentle pressure, then release. Tell me if you feel anything, she said. Ethan inhaled. Warm, he whispered. A little. Alexander covered his mouth. Tears slid down his cheek. He did not conceal them. Ethan saw and said, "It's okay, Dad." The next morning, Alexander met a lawyer in his study, Emily Carter. Calm and astute, David sat nearby. Alexander provided her the threats, the obscured records, the payout to Sarah Jenkins, and Dr. Grant's notes. Emily listened, then said, "We file for the original records with a court order. We request logs, transfer notes, and staffing rosters. If they altered anything, that escalates their trouble." By afternoon, Emily submitted emergency petitions. David dispatched his investigator to Riverside to observe ingress and egress. Alexander remained home with Ethan. That evening, Alexander summoned Maria into his office. His voice quavered. "I installed cameras in this house because I lost trust," he said. "I observed you without informing you. I'm sorry." Maria held his gaze. "I don't like being watched," she said. "But I like Ethan being safe." Alexander nodded. "If you want to depart, I'll understand." Maria replied, "I'm staying for him." 2 days later, the court order arrived. Riverside sent the initial batch of originals. They were not pristine. Alexander discerned it immediately. Timelines were struck through. A signature line had disparate ink. One note stated, "Ethan was moved without full stabilization due to staff shortage." Another note mentioned, "Imaging was delayed for hours." A third note referenced worsened symptoms after a shift change. Alexander read the lines with trembling hands. He felt ill, then furious, then subdued. Maria sat with Ethan in the sunroom while Alexander read. Ethan tapped 2 spoons together, slow and certain. He smiled, minor but genuine. Alexander entered and knelt beside the chair. "Ethan," he said, "I found proof." Ethan's smile vanished. "Proof of what?" Alexander swallowed. "That the hospital did not tell us everything," he said. "They delayed care. They rushed steps. They wrote it in a way that hid their part." Ethan stared at the floor. "So if they did it right, I might have walked." Alexander's voice broke. "I don't know," he said. "But you deserved the truth. You deserved every chance." Ethan's eyes filled. Maria held his hand. Alexander inhaled. "We are going to confront them," he said. "Not for vengeance, for your life, for your dignity, for every child after you." Ethan whispered, "I'm scared." Alexander nodded. "Me too," he said. "But we'll be scared together." Weeks passed. Documents circulated. Conferences occurred, and the house remained guarded. Riverside attempted to delay. Emily countered. David amassed more evidence. A former nurse consented to testify, stating she had been instructed to remain silent after the first night. Sarah Jenkins was located in another state. She confessed she left Ethan unattended. She admitted the hospital offered her money if she signed a statement attributing solely the fall. When that surfaced, the threats ceased. On a tranquil Sunday morning, Alexander sat with Ethan in the backyard. Maria stood a few paces away, affording them space. Birds flitted through the trees. Ethan asked, "Do you still watch the cameras?" Alexander regarded the house. "No," he said. "Not like before. I don't need them to punish myself." Ethan studied him. "Then why retain them?" Alexander smiled through tears. "For the truth," he said. "So nobody hides what happens to you again." Ethan reached for Maria's hand and then for Alexander's. He held both. "I want to try therapy again," he said. "Not because I think I'll be fixed, because I want to feel like me." Alexander squeezed his hand. "That is enough," he said. Maria's voice was soft. "One small thing," she said. And Alexander comprehended what wealth never imparted. Safety is not merely secured doors and hidden cameras. Safety is a child who feels seen in a home where truth is permitted to thrive. But the story doesn't end there. Let's delve deeper into the moments that shaped this family's journey, exploring the nuances of their emotions, the subtle shifts in their relationships, and the broader implications of trust and deception in a world dominated by power and secrecy. As Alexander reflected on those early days after the accident, he remembered the countless nights he spent alone in his study, poring over business reports to distract himself from the silence echoing through the mansion. The estate in Eastwood was a sprawling property, with manicured gardens, a private pool, and rooms filled with art collected from around the world. Yet, none of it brought comfort. Ethan's room, once vibrant with toys and laughter, had become a sterile space adapted for his needs: ramps, lifts, and medical equipment that served as constant reminders of what was lost. Maria's arrival was like a gentle breeze in a stagnant room. She didn't just clean, she observed. On her second day, she noticed Ethan struggling to reach a book on his shelf. Instead of fetching it for him, she adjusted the shelf lower and said, "Now you can get it yourself." Ethan hesitated, then wheeled closer and grabbed it. It was a small victory, but it sparked something in him, a sense of agency he hadn't felt in years. Alexander, watching from his office via the camera, felt a pang of jealousy mixed with gratitude. Why hadn't he thought of that? As the days turned into weeks, Maria introduced more small rituals. Mornings began with a choice: tea or juice today. Evenings ended with a story or a song. One night, she shared a tale from her own childhood about overcoming a fear of heights by climbing a small hill every day. "It wasn't about the top," she said. "It was about the steps." Ethan listened intently, his eyes wide. "Did you ever fall?" he asked. "Many times," Maria replied. "But I got up." Alexander overheard this exchange and realized how isolated he had become. His own childhood was marked by privilege but emotional distance from his parents, who prioritized success over presence. He vowed to change, starting with simple acts like joining Ethan for breakfast. But change was slow. One morning, as Alexander attempted to help Ethan with his meal, his hands fumbled, spilling juice. Ethan snapped, "I can do it." Alexander backed away, hurt but understanding. Maria stepped in quietly, wiping the spill without a word, then whispered to Alexander later, "He's learning independence. Let him." The threats escalated subtly at first. After the initial message, Alexander received anonymous emails with photos of the mansion's exterior, implying surveillance. David Kane ramped up security, installing additional alarms and hiring discreet bodyguards. He traced one number to a burner phone purchased in a nearby city, but the trail went cold. These people are professionals, David warned. Likely connected to the hospital's legal team or higher-ups protecting their reputation. Riverside Medical Center was a prestigious institution, known for treating high-profile patients. But whispers of past scandals, delayed treatments, covered errors, surfaced in Alexander's research. He spent hours browsing online forums where former patients shared stories of negligence. One anonymous post detailed a similar case: a child injured in an accident, rushed through care, and left with preventable complications. "They pay to silence," the post read. Alexander wondered if that was Ethan's fate. Dr. Michael Grant became a beacon of hope. During follow-up visits, he not only conducted tests but also engaged Ethan in conversations about his interests. "What's your favorite graphic novel?" Michael asked once. Ethan lit up, describing a superhero who overcomes paralysis through sheer will. "Sounds like you," Michael said with a wink. These sessions revealed more: faint muscle responses in Ethan's thighs, improved circulation. "With targeted therapy," Michael explained, "we might see progress. Not miracles, but improvements." Alexander clung to these words, sharing them with Maria over coffee one evening. "It's like waking from a nightmare," he confessed. Maria nodded. "But nightmares leave scars. Be patient with him, and yourself." Ethan's therapy resumed with renewed vigor. A new specialist, recommended by Michael, incorporated games into sessions, tossing a soft ball to build coordination, using resistance bands for strength. Ethan resisted at first, frustrated by his limitations. "What's the point if I can't walk?" he cried one day. Maria, present for support, knelt beside him. "The point is feeling strong in other ways. Your mind, your heart, they're moving just fine." Gradually, Ethan engaged more. He even challenged Alexander to a arm wrestling match one afternoon, laughing when he lost but proud he tried. The legal battle intensified. Emily Carter uncovered more emails between Riverside staff discussing damage control after Ethan's admission. A whistleblower, the former nurse, provided sworn statements about understaffing that night. "We were overwhelmed," she admitted. "Decisions were made too quickly." Sarah Jenkins, under deposition, broke down. "They told me to say it was just the fall. The money. I needed it." Alexander watched the recording, his anger tempered by pity. "She was young, scared," he told David. "But the hospital exploited that." As evidence mounted, Riverside offered a settlement, millions in compensation, a non-disclosure agreement. Alexander refused. "This isn't about money," he said in a meeting. "It's about accountability." The case went public, headlines blaring: "Billionaire sues hospital over son's paralysis cover-up." Support poured in, letters from families with similar stories, donations to spinal injury research. Ethan, reading the news with Maria's help, asked, "Are we helping others?" Alexander smiled. "Yes, son. That's the goal." But challenges persisted. One night, a suspicious package arrived at the gate, harmless, but a scare. David traced it to a disgruntled former Riverside employee, leading to an arrest. The threats dwindled as the truth emerged. In quieter moments, Alexander and Ethan bonded over shared activities, watching sunsets from the backyard, playing board games. Maria joined often, her presence a bridge. "You've built a family here," she told Alexander one day. He nodded, grateful. Ethan's progress was incremental. Better control in his upper body, occasional sensations below the waist. Therapy evolved to include hydrotherapy in the pool, where buoyancy allowed freer movement. It feels like flying, Ethan described. Alexander watched, tears mixing with pool water. The resolution came in court. Riverside admitted fault. Delayed imaging led to untreated swelling, exacerbating the injury. They agreed to reforms, better staffing, transparency protocols, and a substantial award directed to a foundation for pediatric care. Alexander stood with Ethan outside the courthouse. "It's over," he said. Ethan, now stronger, replied, "No, Dad. It's beginning." Back home, the cameras remained but were used sparingly, for security, not suspicion. Maria stayed on, not as a housekeeper, but as a trusted companion. The mansion, once cold, echoed with laughter. Alexander learned that true power lies not in control, but in vulnerability, trust, and the courage to seek truth. Dear viewers, this story illuminates something profound. A child was harmed by carelessness. But his life transformed because one housekeeper chose to care, to persist, and to speak when others remained mute. It teaches that wealth can mask issues, but only truth can mend them. And sometimes, the individual with the humblest role bears the greatest duty. This narrative reminds us that overseeing someone differs from protecting them, and genuine protection stems from love, patience, and bravery. If this story touched you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs this message today. Comment where you're watching from and tell us one thing this story taught you. If you want more deep and emotional stories from us, comment more stories, and you'll be the first to receive our next powerful tale. Now, answer these in the comments. We really want to hear from you. 1. If Maria was not there, what do you think would have happened to Ethan? 2. Who failed Ethan the most in this story, the nanny, the hospital, or the father? 3. If you were in Alexander's place, would you have chosen silence or truth? And why?